for under $3 a bag of tannic acid powder, the same compound found in oak bark and gall nuts, will chemically transform rust on any iron or steel surface into a rock-hard, inert black layer that locks out oxygen and moisture permanently. Not slow it down, not mask it, chemically neutralize it at the molecular level, then seal it. This is not a product the $38 billion a year anti-corrosion coatings industry wants explained in plain English. Because once you understand what tannic acid does to iron oxide, you stop buying spray cans, epoxy primers, and professional sandblasting services for jobs you can solve with a paintbrush and $3 worth of powder. The chemistry is exact. Iron rust, iron oxide, Fe2O3, is chemically unstable. Left alone, it keeps consuming the metal beneath it. Tannic acid, a natural polyphenol found in oak galls, tea leaves, tree bark, and dozens of common plants, bonds directly to those iron oxide molecules and converts them into ferric tannate, a dense blue-black compound that is chemically stable, strongly adhesive to the metal surface, and hostile to both oxygen and water. The rust stops, not because it is buried under a coating, because it has been chemically converted into something that no longer participates in corrosion. Two processes published in peer-reviewed materials science journals, including a 2015 study by Kuzmierek and Krzyzewska in Materials and Corrosion, confirmed the inhibitive efficiency of tannic acid across multiple metals and alloys, measuring corrosion rates and polarization resistance against untreated control samples. The results showed statistically significant protection across all tested surfaces. Now consider the scale of the industry that exists precisely because this reaction is not well publicized. The global anti-corrosion coatings market was valued at $38 billion in 2024 and is on track to exceed $54 billion by 2032. PPG Industries, AkzoNobel, Sherwin-Williams, Jotun, BASF. These are the companies dominating that number. Their product lines include epoxy coatings, zinc-rich primers, polyurethane topcoats, and cathodic protection systems, with application costs running from hundreds to thousands of dollars per job. Tannic acid is derived from plant matter. It cannot be patented. A kilogram costs roughly $8 to $12 from industrial chemical suppliers. The math on why it receives minimal marketing investment explains itself. The use of tannins to protect iron is not a modern discovery. It is one of the oldest metallurgical practices in human history, arrived at independently by cultures separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years. The tanners of Imperial Rome, working leather with oak bark tannins in the workshop districts outside the city's walls, observed that iron tools soaked in tanning baths emerged with a dark, hard surface that resisted rust far longer than untreated iron. Roman smiths documented this effect and incorporated oak gall treatments into the finishing of military ironwork by the 2nd century AD. In the Han Dynasty of China, metallurgists working between 206 BC and 220 AD used sumac-based tannin solutions on cast iron agricultural tools to extend their working life through the wet growing seasons. The practice became codified in imperial workshops responsible for maintaining the iron equipment of the state's vast farming infrastructure. In West Africa, iron smelters and blacksmiths across the Sahel region, particularly in the Mali Empire from the 13th century onward, used boiled bark of the shea tree and various acacia species to finish iron implements before trade. The resulting dark surface was recognized by traders and farmers alike as a mark of durability. And in medieval Europe, the guilds of ironmongers and armourers in England and the German states regularly applied oak gall washes to finished ironwork, a practice so routine that it appeared in workshop manuals of the 15th century without explanation, evidence that it required none, because every trained smith already knew it. The first modern scientific documentation of tannic acid's specific reaction with iron oxides came out of conservation science. Industrial research into tannin solutions as rust primers began formally in the 1950s, and by the 1980s, tannic acid had become a standard conservation treatment for corroded iron artifacts on archaeological sites worldwide, adopted by institutions including the Canadian Conservation Institute, the British Museum, and the Smithsonian. The mechanism was confirmed. Tannic acid produces ferric tannate, a stable conversion product that halts the oxidation cycle without removing the base metal, a critical distinction for heritage work where material loss is unacceptable. Military applications followed directly from that conservation science. The United States Army Corps of Engineers adopted phosphoric acid and tannic acid-based conversion treatments for field maintenance of steel infrastructure, bridges, barriers, vehicle frames, in programs documented through the 1990s and into the post-2001 operational deployments in humid and coastal environments where conventional paint systems failed within months. The appeal was logistical. The treatment required no grinding to bare metal, no specialized equipment, no curing ovens. A brush, the solution, and 24 hours were sufficient. For military maintenance operations far from depot facilities, this was not a technical advantage. It was a tactical one. In the description, you will find a complete manual covering the full preparation and application protocols used by professional conservators and military maintenance engineers, procedures that have never appeared in consumer product documentation. Here is exactly how to do this at home and what it costs. Tannic acid powder is available from chemical supply companies, brewing suppliers, where it is sold as a wine clarifying agent, and online retailers. A 100-gram bag costs between $3 and $6, depending on the source. That quantity is sufficient to treat a large vehicle frame, an entire iron fence, or multiple tool sets. To prepare the working solution, dissolve 10 grams of tannic acid powder in 100 milliliters of distilled water. Add 5 milliliters of ethanol, standard rubbing alcohol, which acts as a wetting agent to drive the solution into porous corrosion layers. For heavily rusted surfaces, add 2 milliliters of diluted phosphoric acid. Available as a metal prep solution from any hardware store for under $5 per bottle. The phosphoric acid dissolves any free iron ions and forms a secondary barrier of ferric phosphate over clean metal areas that the tannic acid cannot bond to. Together, the two acids cover the entire surface. Before application, remove loose, flaking rust with a stiff wire brush. You are not trying to reach bare metal. You are removing unstable material that would prevent good surface contact. Apply the solution with a cheap brush, working it into all pits and crevices. The surface will begin to turn blue-black within minutes as the ferric tannate forms. Allow to dry fully, 24 hours at room temperature, 48 hours in cold conditions. Apply a second coat, then top coat with any oil-based paint or epoxy for outdoor exposure protection. The cost of the entire treatment, under $10 for materials sufficient to do multiple large jobs. The cost of the professional equivalent, a sandblasting service followed by epoxy primer and top coat application on a vehicle frame or large iron structure, runs between $300 and $2,000, depending on scale and location. The chemistry produces the same durable primer layer. The price difference is the margin that keeps the coatings industry operating. Tannic acid does not work on aluminum, copper, stainless steel, or galvanized surfaces. It requires iron oxide to bond to. On clean, bare steel, it produces a weak, tacky layer. The reaction needs rust to drive it. This is not a limitation. It is a precision tool. The surfaces it does work on are exactly the surfaces that rust destroys. Mild steel, wrought iron, cast iron, carbon steel, vehicle frames, garden tools, iron railings, barn roofs, tractor components, bridge structural elements. Roman legions who oiled and washed their iron weapons with oak bark tanning solutions before storing them over winter. Han Dynasty farmers, whose tools lasted a generation longer than those of neighboring regions where the bark treatment was not practiced. Malian blacksmiths, whose iron blades arrived at markets with a dark finish that buyers recognized as a guarantee of longevity. Medieval European armourers, who applied the oak gall wash as a final step before delivering finished ironwork. So routine, so expected, that it needed no instruction. They were all performing the same electrochemical reaction, in the same sequence, on the same metal, for the same result. They arrived at it through observation, and passed it forward through craft tradition, centuries before the mechanism had a name. You now have the name, the formula, the source, and the cost. If this video saved your tools, your gate, your truck frame, or your fence, share it with someone whose metal is rusting right now. And subscribe. There is more of this kind of knowledge coming, and most of it costs less than $5.